Good afternoon, everybody. We are going to start today with our unit on ecosystems. We're going to start with some essential questions. Essential questions are questions that we will be able to answer by the end of our unit. So our first essential question is, what characteristics are common in all ecosystems? And our second essential question is, what characteristics are specific to certain ecosystems? So we're going to start today with a probe, and a probe is just a way to find out what you think. There are no right or wrong answers, so your answer might be different than your neighbor's, and that's perfectly okay. I just want to know what is inside your head. So this probe is called habitat change. A small, short-furred gray animal called a devo lives on an island. This island is the only place on Earth where devos live. The island habitat is warm and provides plenty of the devo's only food, tree ants. The devos live high in the treetops, hidden from predators. One year, the habitat experienced a drastic change that lasted for most of the year. It became very cold and even snowed. All of the ants died. The trees lost their leaves, but plenty of seeds and dried leaves were on the ground. Think about anything that might have happened to most of the devos living on the island after their habitat changed. A, the devo's fur grew longer and thicker. B, the devos switched to eating seeds. C, the devos dug holes to live under the leaves or beneath the rocks. D, the devos hibernated through the cold period until the habitat was warm again. Or E, the devos died. So how did you decide what effect the change in habitat would have on most of the devos? So now it's your turn. What do you think happened to most of the devos living on the island after their habitat changed? All right, we are going to get started by watching a short Study Jams video about ecosystems.
Oh, I think I felt a drop.
It better not rain. I've been looking forward to the class camping trip all year.
At least we got the tent up in time. Come on. Aw, Zoe, it's just a little rain.
I hate the rain. It's so totally unnecessary.
Oh, it's necessary. The forest is an ecosystem. It is a community of animals, plants, and other organisms that interact with their environment. Rain is a huge factor in keeping it healthy.
Well, it's also a huge factor in ruining my camping trip. You tell me why it's so important.
All right. Well, an ecosystem like this forest is quite the masterpiece. Things called biotic and abiotic factors work together to make sure an ecosystem survives and flourishes.
What does that have to do with rain?
Rain is an abiotic factor. Abiotic means non-living. Rain, sunlight, temperature, minerals in the soil, they're all abiotic factors that help the ecosystem thrive. Without abiotic factors like rain, the plants in this ecosystem wouldn't be able to stay healthy or grow.
Okay, I getcha. What's a biotic factor then?
Biotic means living. The plants, animals, and even the bacteria found in the forest are all biotic factors. Together, they make up the community living in the ecosystem.
There's a lot going on in this ecosystem, huh?
Yeah, a lot. Plants, animals, weather, bacteria, they each play a different role in helping the ecosystem.
What do plants do?
Plants are producers. They make food and oxygen for the animals.
And animals?
Animals are consumers. They eat the plants and other animals and give off carbon dioxide to help keep the plants alive.
How is bacteria important? Ew.
Bacteria are decomposers. They break down the dead animals and plants and turn them into minerals that help things grow.
That's pretty sweet.
It is. Now do you understand why the rain is so important?
Yeah. Without rain, plants couldn't survive in this ecosystem.
See, the rain ain't so bad after all.
But I'm still hating on it. Abiotic factor or not. Well, I guess the ecosystem is sort of a symphony of parts, abiotic and biotic. Rain, sunlight, and temperature are all abiotic or non-living factors that help an ecosystem survive. Plants, animals, and bacteria are all living or biotic factors. Biotic and abiotic factors work together for an ecosystem to survive and flourish.
Exactly. And check it out.
Aw, and just as I was starting to appreciate all that rain. Know what, though?
Huh?
The skies might be dry, but...
Mud War!
All right. So we are going to start with our vocabulary, and you are going to need either your science journal or a sheet of notebook paper. And just like we did in math before, you're going to make 4 boxes. So you're going to draw a horizontal line, which is side to side, like our x-axis across the middle of your paper. Then you're going to draw a vertical line up and down like our y-axis down the middle of your paper. So this gives you 4 boxes to put your vocabulary words in. You can pause the video if you need to go get your paper and draw your 4 boxes. Our first word is population, and population is a group of individuals of the same species inhabiting the same area. So I chose Finding Nemo as our example, and so our clownfish, which is the breed of fish that Marlin and Nemo are. So all the clownfish living together in the same area. Remember, you can pause the video if you need to. Our next word is community. Community is a group of interacting species living in the same place. So, like I said, Marlin is a clownfish, Dory is a blue tang. They're living together, they're interacting in the same place. So that would be a community. Pause the video if you need to. Ecosystem. An ecosystem is a biological community of interacting organisms in their physical environment. So with your ecosystem, you're bringing in those animals, but you're also bringing in the plants, the other biotic and abiotic factors that make it up. And finally, biome. Biome is a large community of plants and animals that occupy a distinct region. Now, we all know that Finding Nemo takes place in the ocean, which is an aquatic saltwater biome. And we'll get further into that later. But all of the characters in Finding Nemo occupy the ocean, which is their biome. You can pause the video if you need to. Right. So we need to talk about what makes biomes different. And one of those things is the climate. And climate is a characteristic condition of the atmosphere near the Earth's surface at a certain place on Earth. And it is the long-term weather of that area, which is at least 30 years. Normally, you'll see about 20 to 30 years being the average. A place climate includes the general pattern of weather conditions, seasons, and weather extremes such as hurricanes, droughts, or rainy periods. And 2 of the most important factors determining an area's climate are air temperature and precipitation. So the temperature and the amount of precipitation, which is rain, snow, sleet, or hail. Those are the 2 things that determine an area's climate. So now it's your turn. How would you describe North Carolina's climate? How would you describe North Carolina's climate? Think about the weather year-round. How would you describe North Carolina's climate? So North Carolina's climate changes from the coast to the mountains, and it changes throughout the seasons. but mostly it is humid subtropical, what that means hot, humid summers. So think about how hot it gets during the summer, and mild winters. Sometimes it snows during the winter, sometimes it doesn't. So that's why we say that it is a mild winter. We're not too cold, but we're not too warm. So North Carolina's climate is considered humid subtropical. So now we're going to watch a video about climate.
Man, it's freezing. I wish it was sunny and hot. It's too dry. Need water. Please get me out of here. Huh? Oh, so humid. You could cut through this air with a knife. I just want something a little bit drier, maybe with a view. Huh. Oh well, I wonder if there's even such a thing as a perfect climate.
Okay, so it might be common sense that climates near the poles would be cold, and climates near the equator would be hot.
But if you traveled around the equator, you would find that some regions have hot and dry climates, and some are hot and humid. And between the equator and the poles, where you would only expect some temperate climates, you would find some pretty amazing extremes. Let's go and visit some of these extremes and see if we can figure out what causes them. Alright, so we're here in the deserts of Moab and it's extremely dry because there's very little precipitation. And the amount that falls here is determined by a few different factors.
Winds, for example, move clouds, which are essentially masses of water vapor that have condensed. And if there's a mountain range in the path of the wind, the clouds rise up over the mountain and cool. Now this causes the rain or snow to fall on the windward side of the mountain. And the mountain range prevents the precipitation to reach the leeward side of the mountain where it's much drier. So, deserts are frequently found on the leeward sides of mountains.
Alright, but precipitation is only one component of climate. Then, there's temperature.
So why is the equator hot and the poles cold? Well, the sun's energy hits Earth more directly at the equator, and at the poles the sun's energy comes in at more of an angle. So, more energy is absorbed at the equator, and the equator is hot. But the sun's energy doesn't heat the air directly. Instead, it heats up the ground, and the ground warms up the air.
Believe it or not, but temperature and climate can also be affected by how close an area is to a large body of water, like the ocean. So to help us explain this, we're going to follow Jonas, who's in an area a little bit cooler than here.
That's true. In some parts of the world, the ocean plays an important part in heating up the land.
Like here in Iceland, figure this one out. Reykjavik, the capital of Iceland, is at a latitude of 65 degrees north, but has a yearly temperature that is much higher than you would normally expect being this close to the North Pole.
The mean annual temperature of Reykjavik is about 5 degrees Celsius, but on the coast of Alaska, at about the same latitude, the mean annual temperature is less than -3 degrees Celsius.
How could this be?
Well, it turns out that the ocean out here is bringing part of the Caribbean heat with it.
The Gulf Stream starting in the Gulf of Mexico carries warm water north and east. A branch of the Gulf Stream called the Irminga Current splits off and flows along the southern and western coast of Iceland and warms the air, creating milder temperatures also on land.
So can anything else affect our global climate? Unfortunately, yes.
Human activities like burning oil, wood, coal and natural gas produce greenhouse gases, such as carbon dioxide. These have increased a lot over the last couple of hundred years. Greenhouse gases trap the infrared radiation, which would normally leave Earth's atmosphere. When greenhouse gases increase and more energy gets trapped, it causes our global temperature to increase. Scientists have evidence that this increase is already affecting climates worldwide.
But would a slight change in temperature really be such a bad thing? I mean, it can get pretty cold up here. Wouldn't it be nice if we can just raise the temperature just a little bit? So you might think that increased temperatures would be beneficial, but one problem is that increased temperatures will melt polar ice caps and glaciers, which could flood coastal areas in many parts of the world. So we learned that precipitation and temperature are two principal factors that affect different climate, but humans have an impact too. As always, we encourage you to never stop exploring your world.
All right. So, why is North Carolina's climate different from other places in the world? That has to do with the uneven heating of the earth, and that creates cold and warm air masses. And once we get into weather, which by the way is my favorite thing to teach, we'll talk more about warm and cold air masses. So have you ever wondered why one area of the world is a desert, another a grassland, and another a rainforest? Why are there different forests and deserts, and why are there different types of life in each area? And that answer is climate. So let's watch a Crash Course Kids video about that.
Plants are awesome. They're usually quite pretty. The bigger ones provide shade in the summer, many of them have flowers, and some of them are downright tasty. They even do something that most other living things on Earth can't do. Plants take the energy from the sun and change it into chemical energy through photosynthesis. This is the energy that they use to grow. I'm sure you already realize that certain plants, like pineapples, only grow in certain places, specifically places that are tropical, warm, sunny, and a really nice place to take a vacation. But you don't naturally find pineapples in the same places as you do penguins. But why is that? Why do some plants grow in certain areas of the earth and not others? Like so many things, the answer has to do with the sun. The Earth orbits the sun every 365 days. It takes this trip tilted on an invisible line called its axis. This tilt means that the sun's light doesn't hit the Earth evenly. You know this from when we talked about the seasons and why they happen. But seasons aren't the only thing caused by Earth's tilt. Some parts of the Earth, specifically near the equator, get a lot of direct sunlight, or sunlight that beams straight down instead of at an angle. Direct sunlight is pretty intense and hot, so the areas around the equator are warm all the time. Now, the opposite is true for the poles. They get a lot more indirect sunlight, or sunlight that strikes the Earth at a shallow angle all year long. And angled rays are a lot weaker, so they're less warm. And this explains why there are no pineapples at the South Pole. How? Let's say you grow 2 bean seeds in the same conditions in the same room. Same amount of soil, same amount of water daily, even the same kind of pot. Then let's say you put one in direct sunlight, like on a windowsill, and the other across the room on the table. And then you wait. After about 3 weeks, if you compare the plant grown in direct sunlight with the one grown in indirect sunlight, you'd see that the one grown in direct sunlight is a lot bigger, not to mention happier and healthier, if greenness is any indication. And why shouldn't it be? It's had more sunlight to change its energy through photosynthesis, and that energy means more growth. And if you compare the temperature on the windowsill to the temperature on the table, you'd see that the plant by the window was growing in warmer temperatures too. Since the equator gets direct sunlight all year long, it has warm temperatures all year long. So picky plants like pineapples, which take a long time and a lot of energy to produce that yummy fruit, are able to grow there. But pineapples at the poles? Nope. There's just not enough energy from the sunlight there to give the plant what it needs to survive. So, the Earth's tilt on its axis means the areas around the equator get direct sunlight all year long. This means warm temperatures throughout the year, and the areas near the Earth's poles get indirect sunlight all year long, which means colder temperatures throughout the year. Since plants need sunlight for photosynthesis, areas that get a lot of direct sunlight, like around the equator, are home to lots of plants, especially the ones that take a long time to grow. And that's why there are no pineapples at the poles. So, all I'm saying is, if you happen to be traveling to the North or South Pole sometime soon and you really like pineapple, you should just plan on packing some with you. Don't say I didn't warn ya.
All right. So climate is what controls the world's biomes, and the climate of a region will determine what plants grow there and what animals will inhabit or live there. So just like our video just showed us, there's a reason that pineapples don't grow near the North and South Pole. They grow in warmer places. So all three components, climate, plants, and animals, they're interwoven together and they create the fabric of a biome.